Discover the raw, unvarnished truth about wealth building that no one tells you. Brace yourself for a journey that challenges conventional narratives and unveils the uncomfortable realities behind financial success. Are you ready to face the unfiltered path to true prosperity? Who doesn't want to have a lot of money? Although it is true that money can provide solutions to many of life's challenges, it is also true that money itself can create a host of new challenges for those who have it. Even the most intelligent people can be driven insane by the pressure of maintaining a net worth in the millions of dollars. Obtaining wealth is one challenge, but maintaining that wealth over time is a completely different ballgame. Now that we have that out of the way, what are some unsettling realities about wealth that only the wealthy can connect to? The following are some challenges that wealthy people encounter in relation to their wealth, despite the fact that they have a lot of money. 1. Tax planning becomes more complex. The process of tax planning for extremely affluent individuals is one that is both difficult and dynamic. The top tax rate for ultra-high net worth individuals was only 70% in 1980, but it was an astounding 91% back in 1963. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was pushed through by the Trump administration and signed into law on December 22, 2017, lowered the maximum tax rate from 39.6% to 37%. These modifications are only going to be in effect for a limited time, and their sunset date is set for 2025. In addition, the tax plan that Biden has proposed would raise rates of taxation for those with the greatest incomes. His plan calls for a new maximum income tax rate of 39.6%. His plan calls for a new maximum income tax rate of 39.6% to be applied to individuals whose annual income is greater than $452,700 and to married couples whose annual income is greater than $509,300. Additionally, persons with an annual income of $1 million or more would be subject to a capital gains tax rate of 39.6%. 2. Estate planning becomes critical. Astronomically high net worth people consistently face challenges when trying to safeguard their wealth while also making preparations for the future. Not only do they want to keep their riches in order to maintain their standard of living, but they also want to make sure that as much of it as possible will be passed down to their heirs without any intervention from the government. Estate taxes are one method by which the government might have influence on the inheritance of extremely wealthy individuals. Only the wealthiest persons are subject to estate taxes, and the top 10% of income are responsible for more than 90% of the revenue generated by the tax. Even more incredible is the fact that the top 0.1% richest people pay roughly 40% of all estate taxes. Ultra-high net worth individuals have to navigate a complicated set of regulations that are always being updated in order to reduce the amount of estate tax that they owe. For the 2019 tax year, for instance, the exemption amount for estate taxes has been doubled to $11.4 million as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Anything above that amount is subject to a tax rate of 40%, despite the fact that this might seem like a lot. The maximum rate of estate tax has been going down over time, despite the fact that the exemption has been going up. In 1997, a tax rate of up to 55% was applied to any sum that was in excess of the $600,000 exemption. However, the amount of money that is at danger of being taxed is directly proportional to the amount of an estate's value that is in excess of the exemption. 3. They may still feel like they don't have enough money. Surprisingly, even with $1 million in investments, many people who have accumulated so much wealth still do not consider themselves affluent enough. Only 28% of investors with investable assets between $1 million and $5 million believed that they were wealthy, according to a report that was published by ABC News. According to the findings of the survey, 40% of individuals who have $5 million or more in investable assets do not consider themselves to be wealthy. People who are familiar with the ups and downs of the market are aware that it takes a large amount of money to be free of any financial obligations. In addition, wealth is relative, which is especially true in a world where individuals want to compete with one another in terms of material possessions. The majority of wealthy people worry about their children and grandchildren's ability to provide for themselves financially, as well as their own need for long-term care. Therefore, approximately 20% of their total assets are held in cash. Even though they have a considerable amount of money, they do not consider themselves affluent since they do not have an all-encompassing financial strategy to handle these more long-term needs. 4. Lifestyle inflation can be a trap. For wealthy people, lifestyle inflation can be a trap because it has the potential to derail their finances and hinder their ability to save money. When a person's income grows at the same rate as their expenses, it's only normal for them to feel the need to purchase more opulent goods and go on additional holidays. However, if their rate of savings does not keep up with the rise in their spending, they could find themselves in a worse financial position than when they had a lower income. But why is it even possible for that to be so challenging? This is due to the fact that lifestyle inflation can often be significantly higher than the average rate of inflation. In other words, while inflation is currently hovering around 6% on an annual basis, lifestyle inflation would be significantly higher, perhaps 20%. It is difficult to prevent lifestyle inflation due to the fact that it frequently occurs slowly and is not always simple to notice. For instance, if you switched jobs and received a raise of $50,000, you would feel inclined to purchase a new automobile, update your gym membership, and increase the number of times you eat out. These kinds of costs can soon build up, which can slow down your rate of savings. Even if you reduce some of your expenditures, your capacity to raise your savings will still be limited until you also increase the amount of money that you bring in. 5. Philanthropy becomes a priority. Many people who are fortunate now make charitable giving a top priority in their lives. In point of fact, a substantial number of the wealthiest people in the world, like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, have declared their intention to donate a sizable amount of their fortune to philanthropic organizations. The majority of gifts that are greater than $1 million are made to educational institutions in the United States. These donations come from the country's wealthiest individuals. On the other hand, around 12% of such gifts are given to hospitals and charities that are dedicated to healthcare. Additionally, in recent years, there has been a growth in the amount of money donated to charity organizations. The total amount of money donated to charity causes in the United States reached $449.64 billion in 2019. Charity contributions made by foundations are expected to increase by 17% from 2020 to 2021. It is also noteworthy to observe that the charitable deduction, expressed as a percentage of the adjusted gross income, grows larger as one's income does. For instance, people who have an adjusted gross income of more than $10 million are eligible for a charitable deduction of 9.3% of such income. In comparison, persons who have an adjusted gross income of less than $50,000 are only eligible for an 8.4% deduction for their charitable contributions. 6. They are more prone to financial scams and fraud. In 2022, consumers reported losing up to $8.8 billion due to fraud, according to figures provided by the Federal Trade Commission. It represents a rise of more than 30% in comparison to the previous year. It's important to point out that a significant number of the victims of fraud were well-off and well-educated people. In 2022, investment fraud was the category that was responsible for the most reported losses, which amounted to nearly $3.8 billion overall. The reported losses in 2021 were more than double what this sum represented. Scams using imposters came up at number 2, with reported losses of $2.6 billion. This represents an increase from the $2.4 billion reported in 2021. By preying on the psychological vulnerabilities of their victims, con artists are frequently able to effectively deceive even the most reputable and seasoned specialists. As a result, the list of well-known people who have been taken advantage of is long, and it is still growing. 7. They are also worried about managing debt. Even for those who have a lot of cash, it can be difficult to properly manage their finances. A recent poll conducted by Bankrate found that persons living in the United States who have a net worth of at least $100,000 are more likely to have credit card debt than adults who have a net worth that is negative. The wealthy are more likely to struggle with managing their debt since they tend to spend more on their lifestyle, have easier access to credit, and less liquid assets. Persons who have a net worth of more than $1 million are more likely to be credit card debt-free, according to a survey published by USA Today. On the other hand, approximately 46% of those who have a net worth between $200,000 and $1 million carry credit card debt. Surprisingly, the data from the Federal Reserve show that people in the United States with the greatest earnings borrow more money than people in the lowest income brackets do. Comparatively, only 4.6% of the total debt is held by the wealthiest 1% of the population, while the bottom 50% of the population only have 36% of the overall debt. 8. They are more likely to face a lawsuit. Increased wealth brings with it increased visibility, as well as a greater possibility of being the subject of legal action. Those who are wealthy are more likely to be sued for frivolous reasons or in connection with commercial dealings, personal injuries, or conflicts over property. In addition, less than 20% of people with a net worth of more than $1 million are afraid of being sued, whereas 80% of people with a net worth of more than $20 million are afraid of being sued. Many people view those who are wealthy as being desirable targets for legal action. People with great net worth are perceived to have deep pockets and the ability to easily settle any litigation, as stated by both the World Report and U.S. News. They also tend to have more assets, which makes them more likely to be involved in legal problems, such as those pertaining to property or business-related difficulties. This is because these individuals are more likely to be successful.